إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا إنه من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ما تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد عباد الله فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل بدعة ضلالة. I bear witness that there is no true deity worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is his final and his last messenger. O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as he should be feared, and do not die except in a state of submission, in a state of Islam to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say the truth, say the correct thing, say the correct speech. If you do so, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will rectify and correct your actions. And whoever obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger, then he has already attained the ultimate success. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, the best of speech is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the best of guidance is the guidance of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the worst of matters are newly innovated matters in this religion. Whatever is newly innovated will lead you astray. It's amazing how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had described the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in terms of how he felt regarding the people who did not believe in Islam. When he said, وَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ, perhaps that you are actually killing yourself because they do not believe. So if this how was the Prophet ﷺ with the non-Muslims, how is he with his companions? It is obvious that the Prophet ﷺ did not spare any time and was so keen to teach his companions and the Muslims afterwards, to teach them everything that was good for them and to warn them regarding everything that is bad for them, so that they'd be able to go along this path in the most clearest of ways, to be able to figure out what are the pitfalls before they hit it, so they can steer away from it and remain on the straight path. Now, one of the things that the Prophet ﷺ would used to do is even teach them how to make dua for things that would bring good to them, and seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for things that are considered bad for them. Now I want to comment on one of these hadith that the Prophet ﷺ would make dua and teach his companions. In fact, Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, and Sunan Tirmidhi had mentioned, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يقوم من مجلس حتى يدعو لأصحابه بهذه الكلمات. Abdullah ibn Umar said that the Prophet ﷺ would not rise up from a majlis, from a sitting with his companions, except that he would make this dua with these words. And we've all listened to this dua. اللهم اقسم لنا من خشيتك ما تحول به بيننا وبين معاصيك ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا به جنتك ومن اليقين ما تهون به علينا مصيبات الدنيا ومتعنا بأسماعنا وأبصارنا وقوتنا ما أحييتنا واجعله الوارث منا واجعل ثأرنا على من عادانا وانصرنا على من ظلمنا ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا ولا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا ولا تسلط علينا من لا يرحمنا. So this beautiful dua, the Prophet ﷺ is saying, O Allah, Allahumma qsim lana min khashyatik. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give us a share, bestow upon us a share of fearing you, by which that you would prevent us from disobeying, falling into the sins. And give us from the good and pious actions by which you would allow us to enter Jannah. And yaqeen, belief, and iman, and trust in your decree, by which you would make the calamities that befall us easy upon us, or feel that it's easy upon us. And then he would, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, make dua. So all these are the Prophet is requesting things for himself and his companions. And he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, allow us to enjoy our sights and our hearing and our strength as long as we are alive, and actually let it be our waratha, which means let us die before they weaken. This is what it means. And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after this dua, he would also request, and let our vengeance be upon the ones who have wronged us, transgressed upon our rights, and aid us and support us against our enemies. And then the Prophet ﷺ switches to another type of dua. Things that he is seeking refuge for himself and the companions. So the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us what we should ask for and what we should seek refuge from, be careful of. And the first thing he said, وَلَا تَجْعَلْ مُصِيبَتَنَا فِي دِينِنَا. Do not let the calamity that befalls us be a calamity in our religion. وَلَا تَجْعَلِ الدُّنْيَا أَكْبَرَ هَمِّنَا. And do not let this worldly life be our main and most important concern. وَلَا مَبْلَغَ عِلْمِنَا. Or the extent of our knowledge. وَلَا تُسَلِّطْ عَلَيْنَا مَنْ لَا يَرْحَمَنَا. And do not allow whoever is made in charge of us, or ahead of us, or is going to do something to us, be an individual who is not merciful. Now, to be honest, this is a very long hadith to explain. And because of the shortness of time, I actually wanted to focus on just 3 things that the Prophet ﷺ made dua. Because quite often we know what to ask for. And these du'as are beautiful because it puts in our minds a perspective of what we should look for and what we should heed from, how we should live our life. Can I ask the brothers there's a lot of gaps in the middle and the brothers are already standing outside. If you can shift to the side and kind of move forward, that'd be great. I should see a lot of open spaces. If I have to make you stand, I'll make you stand to move forward. So just please shift to the side and move forward. So the Prophet ﷺ, I'm going to focus on 3 things that the Prophet ﷺ sought refuge from. Because I mentioned once again, we always know what we want, what is good for us most of the time. We generally ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what is good for us. But quite often we forget to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from what is bad. And this is something is important. Hudayfa bin Yaman radiallahu anhu, he understood this, and this is why he said, كان الناس يسألون رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الخير وكنت أسأله عن الشر مخافة أن يدركني. The people, he said Hudayfa bin Yaman, people used to ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about what was good, and I used to ask him about what was bad and evil. Why? مخافة أن يدركني, out of the fear that it would come to me. The basis of this is that how can you be careful of what you are ignorant of? How can you protect yourself from something that is bad when you do not know it is bad? It's as simple as that. So Hudayfa beautifully understood this, and he related to this. He would ask the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ would teach him these things so that Hudayfa and also us afterwards would learn what to be careful of. And so these 3 specific parts of the hadith would teach us this. The Prophet ﷺ, and this expert of the hadith, when he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from something. He said, وَلَا تَجْعَلْ مُصِيبَتَنَا فِي دِينِنَا. Do not let the calamity be in our religion and faith. Just the way this hadith is narrated and how the Prophet ﷺ mentioned this, it makes it obvious that the greatest calamity that can befall us is a calamity on our religion. It is far more severe. It is far more severe and has more of an impact and repercussions than any other form of loss. Whether it's a loss in wealth, or a loss in health, or a loss in family, or even a loss of life. It is far more worse than that. Because in the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us with these things. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, we will test you. وَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ. Out of fear, you'll be tested with fear. Sometimes you will experience this fear. It is a test. وَالْجُوعِ, hunger. وَنَقْصٍ, and reduction in الأنفس والأموال والثمرات, in life and in wealth and in crops. We fear all these things and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from these calamities. But the worst calamity of all is a calamity in religion. One of the scholars was commenting on what it means. It means that you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect you from anything that would reduce or lower your religion. When we talk about religion, it includes your i'tiqadat, your beliefs, your ibadat, your acts of worship, mu'amalat, your interactions, and your manners. Because these things encompass your religion, how you behave, how you worship, what you believe in, and your transactions. It's all encompassing. And so the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us to be careful, that these are the worst of matters that can befall us. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, sometimes we take it for granted. We say that we are Muslims, and we take our belief for granted. We don't realize that there's actually something that's called doubt and misconceptions. Those are things that affect our beliefs, our aqa'id, our creed. We're going to talk about each one of those, the ibadat and aqa'id. These affect our creeds and beliefs, misconceptions and doubts. And we have to face the reality that many of the individuals who have stayed here for such a long time, and the youth that have been, living in this time and have been nurtured, quite often unknowingly can have doubts and misconceptions seeded in them and do not show up until later. We should never take this for granted and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to affirm our hearts in this religion. Now, even the Prophet ﷺ, made this dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anas ibn Malik, radiyallahu anhu, he said, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يكثر من أن يقول يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلبي على دينك. He used to say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Anas reported that the Prophet ﷺ used to say, O turner of hearts, affirm my heart upon your religion. So Anas, this puzzled him. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, آمنا بك وبما جئت به فهل تخاف علينا? O Messenger of Allah, we believed in you and we believed in what you brought. So do you fear for us? And we're talking about the companions over here. The companions who have seen the revelation, who have seen the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who have witnessed his miracles, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who have seen firsthand and been around the blessings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and are led by the Prophet himself. So how could we even think that this would affect them? But what did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say? He said, Na'am. Yes, I fear for you. And then he explained sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, Inna qulub al-nas بين إصبعين من أصابع الله يقلبها كيف يشاء. Verily the hearts of man are between the two fingers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He turns them as He wishes. So we should never take it for granted. We should never take it for granted. There are misconceptions and there are doubts. We should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove this from us. Now when it comes to acts of worship, we should seek refuge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would either make us among the ones who don't do them or reduce in their activities. And it's important for any form of worship, for it to be accepted, to have two pillars. One, ikhlas, sincerity, that this is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we all know this. And sometimes it's very easy for us to detect something wrong in this. But the second one, sometimes we forget, is that it be in accordance with the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abdullah ibn Jabir radiallahu anhu, he tells us the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam of how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would emphasize this one aspect of following in the footsteps, following in the guidance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, Abdullah ibn Jabir, it's mentioned in Sahih Muslim, he said, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا خطب, for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if he gave a khutbah, he would say, أما بعد, as for what comes next, فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله, the best of speech is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَخَيْرُ الْهَدْي هَدِي Muhammad. And the best of guidance is the guidance of Muhammad. He's ingrained in this in their mind that my guidance is the best of guidance. No other person's guidance is parallel to mine or better. And then he would teach them, وَشَرُّ الْأُمُورِ مُحْدَثَاتُهَا. And the worst of matters are innovated matters in this religion. It means that the Prophet ﷺ, it was not his guidance. It is new after his death. Something that the companions did not practice. Something the companions who saw the Prophet ﷺ and were the most keen to follow in his footsteps did not do. And then he would say in that khutbah, وَشَرُّ الْأُمُورِ مُحْدَثَاتُهَا وَكُلَّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ. And every innovation would lead you astray. Period. So he is reminding us not to venture in this area and to protect our faith, our creed, from misconceptions and from doubts, and to protect our acts of worship from being infiltrated by anything other than the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ. Because this was his role. The role of the Prophet ﷺ was to clarify to us how to practice our religion. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ did not die until he showed us everything that we need. Now we also seek refuge that things reduce in our religion is that not fall into sin or remain in sins. And you know what's interesting? If you look at the first three du'as that the Prophet ﷺ made, they are all towards protecting our religion. When the Prophet ﷺ said, "Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give us a share of fear of you by which that we would not commit sins." That's protection of your religion. وَمِن طَاعَتِكَ مَا تُبَلِّغْنَا بِهِ جَنَّتَكَ. And from obedience by which you allow us to enter heaven, that is protection of your religion, obedience. وَمِنَ الْيَقِينِ. And from the belief, strong belief and trust in you, by which we, when we calamities befall us, it will make it easy upon us. That is belief in your creed. That is the first part of the hadith. Now the Prophet ﷺ is requesting that this be installed, and he's asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from having a calamity in our religion. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, it is true that the worst of calamity we have is a calamity in our religion. We should look at ourselves, and it's a good thing to remind ourselves, measure ourselves before we're measured, to weigh ourselves before we're weighed in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Are we doing well? Alhamdulillah. Do we need improvement? There is time for improvement. We are still alive, alhamdulillah. So why not take this opportunity? And then the Prophet ﷺ went to the next dua. And he said, وَلَا تَجْعَلِ الدُّنْيَا أَكْبَرَ هَمِّنَا. And do not make this world our most important concern. It is very natural for an individual or human being to dedicate all his time or the majority of his time and energy to whatever he thinks or she thinks is important. To whatever he thinks or she thinks is important. And so if we think that the worldly matters, whether it is wealth or fame or popularity or materials, are the most important things in this world, we are going to dedicate the majority of our time towards these things. What is even worse is that at a time when it conflicts with something that we even think is important but less important, we are willing to sacrifice the less important. And this is very normal. This is why the Prophet ﷺ said, do not make this world our main concern. Now he did not say, do not make it a concern, because we have to understand things properly. It is very normal to have concern about our livelihood. In fact, it falls into the category of mandatory, wajib, to seek our well-being in terms of materials that we need to survive. But our intentions for it are always for the hereafter. When the Prophet ﷺ is asking that we get protected not to allow this world, our main concern, the opposite of the world is the hereafter. They're opposites, which means that he's asking that the hereafter be our main concern. And this is how it should be, which means that even when we are involved and occupied with our worldly matters, it has to be with the intention that we are seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that when any contradiction occurs between worldly gains and the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, between worldly gains and the gains of the hereafter, we do not sacrifice our religion. We do not sacrifice our hereafter, but rather sacrifice this monetary gain, temporary monetary gain. And the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us this different many ways. For example, when the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man taraka shay'an lillah, awadahu khayran minh." Whomever leaves something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would reward him better than it. Actually, I shouldn't say reward. Awadahu, which means that he would recompense him for something that is better. Would give him something else that is better. Which means that even when you're doing it, you think it's good for you, but when you leave it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you something that is better. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as I mentioned by Amr ibn Auf al-Muzani radiallahu anhu, he said that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, فَوَاللَّهِ لَلْفَقْرَ أَخْشَى عَلَيْكُمْ. He's talking to the companions radiallahu anhu. He said, فَوَاللَّهِ لَلْفَقْرَ أَخْشَى عَلَيْكُمْ ولكن أخشى عليكم أن تبسط عليكم الدنيا كما بسطت على من كان قبلكم فتنافسوها كما تنافسوها فتلهيكم كما ألهتهم وفي رواية فتهلككم كما أهلكتهم. So the Prophet ﷺ is saying in this beautiful hadith, he's talking to the companions, he said, "For Wallahi, by Allah, I do not fear poverty upon you." Which means I do not fear that poverty would lead you astray, that you would fail this test. وَلَكِنْ أَخْشَى عَلَيْكُمْ. But I fear for you or upon you that this world, and tabsuta, which means open. When you say basata yadayhi, which means open, that this world would open to you with all its pleasures and beauty and bounties. Similar to how it had opened up for the previous people before you. And so what would happen? فَتَنَافَسُوهَا كَمَا تَنَافَسُوهَا. So you would compete in it, similar how they competed. And then it would تُلْهِيَكُمْ. It would occupy you. It would distract you, similar to how it distracted them. Distract you from what? From your real target. From your real aim. From your real goal. And another narration that it would destroy you, similar to how it destroyed them. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, the Prophet ﷺ has pointed that when our main concern becomes this world, a negative consequence comes from it. That we start competing for it. And in competition, bad things happen. Bad manners come out. Negative things come out. We fight over things and we forget that we are here for a purpose. We fight over things that are monetary, things that are very few and temporary in gain. And we sacrifice our hereafter for these things. The Prophet ﷺ in another hadith, and the last one I mentioned in this category, lays it out very clear for us. Zayd ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu, he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man kanat ad-dunya hammuhu, farraqa Allahu alayhi amra, وجعل فقره بين عينيه ولم يأته من الدنيا إلا ما كتب له." So this first part of the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, whomever his main concern is these worldly things, these worldly matters, what would happen is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would disperse his matters أمره فرق عليه أمره. Now أمره is a general word that can refer to everything. Your family, your wealth, your needs, your health, your children. Which means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not make them collected for you. If your main intention are worldly gains and that's it, period. That's your main concern. You wake up in the morning and this is what you're thinking about. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will disperse your matters. You have no barakah in your time. You have no barakah in your wealth. No barakah in your children, in your family, in your friends. Allah will disperse all that make your life difficult. وَجَعَلَ فَقْرَهُ بَيْنَ عَيْنَيْهِ. And he will always see that he is impoverished. His poverty will be, his need will always be in front of his eyes. Which means that no matter how wealthy he is, he will always feel that he is poor and he needs more. وَلَمْ يَأْتِهِ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَا كُتِبَ لَهُ. And in the end, he will not get from this world except what Allah wrote for him. That's it. But the opposite, in the same hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, وَمَنْ كَانَتِ الْآخِرَةُ نِيَّتَهُ. Whomever the hereafter was his intention, everything he's doing is for the intention of the hereafter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would reward him with three things as the Prophet ﷺ had mentioned. جَمَعَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ أَمْرًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will collect his matters for him. Everything will be so easy. There will be blessings in his wealth. No matter how much little he makes, it is always enough and sufficient. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will place blessings in his family and his wife and his children. They will be pious and good and obedient. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would preserve his health and his time. It would not take him so long to finish the things that would take, Allah bless him this time, he'll finish things so quickly. جَمَعَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ أَمْرًا. That's the first thing. وَجَعَلَ غِنَاهُ فِي قَلْبِهِ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would make him feel rich and content in his heart. Which means that this individual will never ever feel the need from anybody. Will always be content and pleased. And the third reward, the Prophet ﷺ said, وَجَاءَتْهُ الدُّنْيَا وَهِيَ رَاغِمَةٌ. And this world will come to him. He's not chasing it anymore. This world will come to him, وَهِيَ رَاغِمَةٌ. وَهِيَ رَاغِمَةٌ, which means that even if it doesn't want, forcefully it will come to him. Dear brothers and sisters, the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us, if you want everything in this world, everything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created it for you, the only thing you have to do is remember what is your purpose. And do not make this world your main concern, but rather it is the hereafter. قُلْ قَوْلِ هَذَا وَاسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهَ لَكُمْ وَغَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. إن الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. Now the last thing that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his hadith sought refuge in, he said, ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر منا ولا مبلغ علمنا. Do not make this world the extent of our knowledge. Do not make this world the extent of our knowledge. Which means, do not make us individuals who have so much knowledge of these worldly matters, but have no knowledge of what is beneficial in terms of our religion and practices and faith. Unfortunately, we spend so much time on secular education and striving for the betterment of our world. And we forget that there is a flip coin to this, which is knowledge that is important to feed our soul, so that we can practice this religion properly, so that we will be firmly established in it, so that we would build our hereafter. They need to go hand in hand. We need to give similar time to how much we seek knowledge in our worldly things, but also seek knowledge for our hereafter. Islamic knowledge. I'm not saying they have to be scholars or everyone has to be scholars, but there's always this minimum amount of knowledge that we all need to seek. And it differs from one person to person. We all have the same level. We all need to know how to pray properly. Not from our culture and our parents, but no, actually sit down and learn how to make proper wudu, prayers. If you're a person who has wealth, then zakat. If you're a doctor, then by the way, there is a fiqh of being a doctor. If you're a businessman, then the business, you have to learn the fiqh of doing business transactions. and so many things depending on what you are doing. It becomes mandatory upon you. If you're going to go for Hajj, then it's mandatory to learn how to do Hajj, Umrah, and so forth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke negatively about the people who only knew worldly things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَهُمْ عَنِ الْآخِرَةِ هُمْ غَافِلُونَ. They know, they have knowledge about the outside things of this world, which means their livelihoods. But when it comes to the hereafter, they're heedless. And he even instructed the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, وَأَعْرِضْ عَمَّنْ تَوَلَّى عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا وَلَمْ يُرِدْ إِلَّا الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا ذَلِكَ مَبْلَغُهُمْ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed the Prophet, he said, فَأَعْرِضْ, which means turn away. فَأَعْرِضْ عَمَّنْ تَوَلَّى عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا. Turn away from those who had turned away from our dhikr, from this Quran, and did not desire except this world, because this is the extent of their knowledge. That's it. And so one of the things that is really important, and it all comes hand in hand, by the way, with knowledge, we are able to clear the misconceptions and doubts and protect our religion. With knowledge, we are able to figure out what is good for us and what is bad, and how to solve our problems. And so many things fall into place with this. With true knowledge, we realize what is our most important concern. So it's amazing how our teachers, this teaching of Islam, is a complete form of teaching. Everything is linked together. We should not separate one from the other, because otherwise you have holes and it can fall and collapse. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect all of us. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to what pleases Him, and to guide us into following the footsteps of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات وارحمنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ونسألك العفو والعافية في الدنيا والآخرة. ونسألك العفو والعافية في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان. اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان. اللهم انصرهم وكن لهم ولا تكن عليهم. اللهم رد كيد أعدائهم في نحورهم. اللهم رد كيد أعدائهم في نحورهم وانصرنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وردنا جميعا ردا جميلا إلى دينك يا رب العالمين. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. وصلى اللهم وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. وقوموا إلى صلاتكم.